Hello everyone and welcome to this fly tying video. Today we're going to tie yet another Caddis Pupa pattern. This one I will call the Chroma Caddis Pupa. Last week I started thinking about a new Caddis Pupa pattern. So I've tied this in a lot of variants and a lot of different colors, ranging from black to this pinkish, even orange here. And today I got some new materials that I tried out on the same pattern, so I'm really pleased with the result. So this here is the fly I'm going to show you today. The hook I'm using is this Partridge Czech Nymph. This one is the heavy wire one. They also have a fine wire one that I use mostly for emergers and for lightweight Czech Nymphs, but this one has become lately one of my favorite hooks, as it has this perfect bend for me. I like a continuous bend in my Czech Nymph hooks and also for the Caddis Pupa. So this here is in the size 12. To start this off, I'm going to add some lead-free wire. Make sure you get lead-free stuff, because the other one is both harmful for you and the fish. So you want to get some lead-free wire. This one is 0.015, and I'm counter-winding this on. 10-15 turns or so should be enough for this one. And here I'm pushing this up to about just a few millimeters. I want to have a few millimeters here behind the eye to tie in all the materials. So for this fly I want to have a nice taper here at the back. So the easiest way that I found is to use flat nose pliers, and you can just squeeze the end here. And if you increase the strength gradually from this point here to up, you're going to get a nice taper when you wind this on. So it's a really easy way to get a nice taper. And I've also tried out the flat lead wire, or the one with a sticky back, but for me it always just get messy, so this is the way I like to do it. And then to secure this even more, I'm going to add just a thin coat, or this glue here is really runny, so it's going to go down inside the wire wraps and will really secure this. Then I'm just taking off the excess. And here now, if you're going to tie a lot of these flies at the same time, this great way you maybe tie, or you maybe wait 10 of these at a time, and once you've done the first one, and when you're finished with the 10th one, the first one will be dry, so you can just start tying. But here I'm going to tie this right away. To cover up this wire here and to secure it even more, I'm going to start with some Uni 6/0 in white. And I'm using the white one just to have this neutral color that you can then color with a marker, or it's going just to blend in nicely with the rest. And here what I do is I start at the back and then a few turns first, then go up all the way here to the top or to the front. And I would really like to do a few turns here just to hold this wire in place, and then you can go back again, go down and up a few times. This is only to put down a thin layer of thread here all around, so you can tie on the other materials later. And all this process is even easier if you let the glue set for a moment, and every turn you make will then stay right on top. Here what can happen is you get your turns in between the turns of wire, and this will push the wire out and make for a not so nice taper to the fly at the end. And now here what will change from the other ones I tied. Here all these, you can see they have quite a translucent body, and I've actually colored the thread with a marker here on top and then wrapped on some translucent nymph skin. I wanted to order some more, but they didn't have this color, so what I got instead was in the color Natural, and I've never tried this out, but I got this today and I tried it on exactly this pattern and it looks really great. It isn't as translucent as the other one, but if you pull on it really hard you can get a quite translucent effect on it. But it has this nice, quite golden color, and also it has much more shimmer than for the other one. For this one I'm going to tie the fly and then color it at the end, and we'll get a really nice effect. So here, when you get one of these, it comes in this long strip. This one is the 3mm one. It's the one I have used for all my flies. If you want to tie bigger flies, I would suggest you go with a 4.5mm. But for my needs, the 3mm is really fine. And what you get here is this long strip of pre-cut material, so it's really easy to use. What I do to facilitate tying is I cut off a piece about a few centimeters, and I don't know if it changes anything with these latex type materials to keep them in the sealed bag, but I think it prevents the material from drying up, so I always keep it in this little bag that it comes with. So here what I noticed on this one is that it has a shinier side on one side and a much duller side on the other one, so you could use both depending on the effect you want to have on your fly. To facilitate the tying, I'm going to cut the tip off. This is also explained on the little package it comes with. So then what I do is I take the longer end facing down and then tying it in just by the tip down into the band. And here you can choose if you want a longer fly or a shorter one. I like to have these quite long. And here, as you tie it down, you can really pull on it, and this will help with the taper as well. And I will add just a few more turns to build up this nice taper. Then once you've done this, you can then whip finish with this 6/0, as we're not going to need it anymore. So just a few turns, cut it off. For the rest of the fly, I'm going to use the Nanosilk from Semperfli. This one is the 80/0 in the color Beige. And for this tying, I would really suggest you get a really thin and strong thread, and these GSP type of threads are perfect for this. I'm going to explain it just a little bit later, but it's to get the turns of thread down inside this material, as I will explain later. So what I do here is I start right here behind the eye, and this thread is quite slippery, so that you tied your whip finish here with the other thread here in front really helps to get these first turns down without the thread spinning around the hook. Then I'm going to take one of my homemade caddis eyes, and this one is just made out of monofilament. I have shown in another video how you do these, so I will put the link right here. So if you want to check this out, just go for this. And here what I do is I tie this in right here behind the eye, and what you want to do is to do some cross wraps here. First on this and then this way. And then a technique I learned quite some years ago is to, once you've done a few turns, then to secure this even more is to take a few turns right under the eye, the same way you would if you post like a parapost. So this will really compact the turns together and really make this stay. What I like to do is to add just a little drop of glue as well. This will only help all these thread wraps staying together. And then here, once you're tied in the eyes, I'm going to park my thread just a little way down here. And then what you do is you pull on this nymph skin really hard, and for the first turn I like to do a really firm wrap here to get this started, and then going the whole way up, doing some overlapping turns here. And as you will go, you'll get these really nice segments for the body or the abdomen of this caddis pupa. And the color is also really perfect for exactly imitating caddis pupa or some worm. And as I said, you can then color these to get any color you want. They also have a quite wide range of colors, so there's always the possibility to get exactly the color that you want. And then once you reach here, when you park the thread, you can then tie this off with a few really heavy turns. You don't want this material to come undone and then have your whole abdomen messed up. And then what I do is I bring this material back. I do one turn here, a few more turns here just to secure this, then go back, one more turn, two on top. And here, as you have this really thin thread, you can really bind down between the wraps. You can almost not see the thread here in between. So here, as you tied this up, these segments here will then give you like a guideline for where you want to stop or where you want to start the thorax. So what I like to do is to go back to about here. And another guideline is to try to get this about a little bit in front of the point of the hook, and this will give some nice proportions to your fly. So then here we have this thorax cover, so the same material is going to be the abdomen, the thorax cover, and the head of the fly. So it's a really nice technique to use the same material for many parts of the same fly. Most of the most effective flies only use a few materials, so if you can, with your new patterns, try to keep this materials number as low as possible. I only think this is a good idea. And now we're going to add the first material for our thorax, and this is going to be the wing buds on this caddis pupa. So for many years what I used to tie the wing buds was some just natural or dyed pheasant tail, and these have these stiff fibers that you use for the pheasant tail fly to do the bodies or the tails or legs. So for me it was not the perfect material to do the wing buds. I like to have some softer materials that would stay together a little more. So a few weeks back I decided to take a look in my fly box or materials box, and I had bought this pheasant tail clump here. And in this one you get a lot of feathers. You get some small ones here at the back that you can use for different things. You also get two, as I would say, perfect pheasant tail feathers, and these are the ones with both sides of the feather with these stiff fibers. And then you get two which have stiff fibers on one side and then some soft ones on the other side. So what I decided to try out is to take the softer fibers to do these wing buds instead, and I really think this gives a much better look to the overall fly, and also it's easier to tie in because these will tend to stick together a little more than the stiffer fibers that will splay out and go all over the place. So what I do here is to take, I would say, about 8 of these softer fibers, and then you can just tear these off. I'm going to tie in the first clump here on my side, and what I do is about 50-50 with these quite short fibers. I tie this in here on my side, and here these grooves also really help to get this tied in. You just tie it in, it will stay right like this, and then leave this for now. Then take another clump exactly the same size, and we're going to tie this in on your side or the further side for me. So tie this in exactly the same way right here in this last groove that we made. Then to get a nice taper to the fly, what I like to do is to take this up, these ends here or the tips, and I like to take this up right to the eyes here, not the eye but the 2 eyes that we tied in. So I take this up right to here, a few turns to secure, and then cut this off really close. Go back in your grooves here to where we left these materials, and for now we'll just leave these hanging right here, sticking out at the back. And now we're going to dub the thorax, and for this you can use any dubbing you like. Today I got some new dubbing materials, so as I like new stuff, I'm going to use mostly the new ones I got. So I bought some laser dub in the color dark tan. I have some ice dub in Peacock, and Hare line here. I have the old one as well, and I don't know if you can see, but it should be quite clear. This one, it has the new ice dub called Peacock, has a much more rusty color to it. It has much more red and orange in it, and here is the old one, which is quite lighter. The new one is quite much darker, so I thought I would give that a try. So I've taken these two dubbings and mixed in some dark dun Hare dubbing, and this got me this nice shimmery dubbing with a lot of green and rusty colors to it. To dub this on, you could use the usual technique, just to do a dubbing noodle onto the thread and then wind it on. What I like to do is to use the split thread technique, and this will give a lot more length to the dubbing, and it also tends to give a much lighter feel to it at the end, with a lot of translucency and with a lot of movement to the fibers. So I really like this technique. So what I've done here is I've split the thread in two, then grab just a little dubbing at a time, and I'm going to insert this between the split threads here. You could also use a dubbing loop for this. It's exactly the same, only that you would use a dubbing twister and double the thread. So what I like to do is to use this. You won't build up any bulk to the fly, and you also don't need any more tools that you already have. You only use a bobbin and a dubbing needle, and that's it. So then, once you've inserted all this material, you then spin the bobbin clockwise again, and this will cord the thread and trap all the fibers in between. And as you see, you will have this quite long fiber sticking out, so it gives a really natural look to the fly. Here in the first groove, 2 turns, then go up to the next one, and for each turn I really like to pull the dubbing back, and this will give this nice dubbing sticking out all over the place, representing legs and wing buds and all this stuff on an emerging caddis pupa. And now we're going to tie the wing buds, and this must be the most critical part on this fly. Here a little practice is needed to get this right, but if you do this quite a few times, it should not be really that hard. So what I have here is just a dubbing needle, and then what I do is I take this, so I have the dubbing needle in my left hand, and then with the right hand I'm going to grab the ends here of one of the 2 bundles of pheasant tail, and then I'm going to pull this over, and then holding this in place with my right hand, and then going to change to left hand, holding this right where you want it, and then take a few quite loose turns to get hold of all these materials, and then once you're happy with how it's set, you can then make a few heavy turns. And here, as you can see, you have these pheasant tail fibers coming right back and forming this little wing bud here on the fly. And another thing that really helps with this is the dubbing that you've put on underneath. I found that it's a lot easier to do this procedure with dubbing underneath, and then I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. So you hold this, the needle here, you fold the pheasant tail over it, and here you want to have this one the same length as the other one, so try to get this as close as possible. and then a few loose turns to hold everything in place, and then once you're happy with how this set, and here you can see the two ones, and these are the same length, so you can then, holding this really tight, you can then really pull on this to bind down these materials. Then a few turns in front to secure. Now we have all these fibers, or the ends of the fibers sticking out, and we're going to cut these off as close as possible. And if these are a little long, it doesn't really matter. It could just represent legs on this fly, so it could be a choice to leave these a little longer to represent some legs sticking out. So there we have the wing buds tied in, one on each side. Now the next part is really easy. We just want to bring this nymph skin over to do like a thorax cover on this fly. For my earlier versions of this, I did this in 2 times. I first tied it in here right in between and then fold it over once again, but I found out that it makes for a much neater fly to do this in one go. So it gives this long and nice thorax cover here, and this fly could also represent the stonefly nymph if you have these in your waters. So here a few heavy turns to bind this down, and then in front to secure. And now pull this a little way back, a few turns in front. And here these eyes are really helpful for the tying of this fly. It's not just an aesthetic thing. It really keeps all these materials. If I did not have these eyes really well tied in here in front, when you tie in the other materials, you could, if you're unlucky, have all the other things just slide right out over the eye. So these eyes are really helpful and also give this nice realistic look to the fly. And now the only thing left to do is to tie in just a few more materials, or one material here in front. And here you could have a lot of different variants on this fly. You could just go with a little dubbing here in front, and this would make for a great fly. You will then just finish it, and it would be nice this way. On my earlier patterns I tied in just a little CDC in front, and then on the way back I tied in some pheasant tail fibers to represent the antennas. Today I even tried out one with some micro rubber legs, and it gives a whole new look to the fly. And I haven't really tried out the rubber legs anything yet. I always had some that were too thick for my flies, so I haven't really got to test these out. So if you have any experience with rubber legs, please tell me. I would really like to know if these fish well, if it really adds something to the fly. But for this pattern here I'm going to go with just some CDC in front. It makes for a really nice looking fly, and I don't think you need much more than a little bit of CDC to finish off the fly. So here I'm going to go with some dark CDC. This one is from Marc Petitjean. When I bought the new vise here, I had the opportunity to choose a few more colors of CDC. So here I've taken one CDC feather and I put the fibers 90 degrees from the stem. I just used the clip here from the magic tool to trap one side of the fibers in the clip here, and then cut off all the fibers. And you don't need much for this at all. So I'm just going to add this the same way I added the dubbing, using the split thread technique. So here, spin the bobbin counterclockwise, then with your dubbing needle we can then split it in two. You then insert the CDC in between the two threads, spin it just a little between your fingers. This will prevent any CDC from falling out. And then spin the bobbin clockwise again. This will cord up the thread and trap all the fibers in between. And then what you want to do is to spin up all the turns to where you have the CDC. You don't want your turns to be here down it has no use. You want all your turns to be here, right up where the CDC is. Then bring up your bobbin, and then right behind the eyes here, I'm going to tie this in, and for each turn pull this back, and this will really give the impression of some legs here in front. And then up to the eye of the hook, right in front of the eyes you tied in. Push down on each side here. Try to make room for the nymph skin to go over. And here you want to pull on this quite hard. Then 2 turns in front. And then back again, right behind the eyes. And then you want to pull your nymph skin over once again and really pull on this time as well. And here we're going to tie this down right behind the eyes, 2 turns, and then grab your whip finisher, and we're going to whip finish right here, right behind the eyes. 3 turns should be enough. Pull tight, and then cut off your thread. And here the last tying or the last cutting that should be done is to pull on this right up and then cut this off straight. And this will only leave this little tag here, and it's barely noticeable. And here on the way back you could also, as I did for the previous ones, tie in some pheasant tail antennas, but I think the CDC fibers, the longer ones, really make up for this. So here we have the tying of this fly down, and now to add this little extra I'm going to take a marker. This one is in the color bronze, and here I start coloring just the back of the abdomen, and then the thorax will be a little darker, so I'm going to add a little more color than for the abdomen. And the head as well will have some color on it. And here we have this little darker thorax, as the naturals have a darker thorax than abdomen. So I want to imitate that by adding a little more color here in front. And then to secure this fly a little more and the color as well, I'm going to add just a thin coat of varnish to the top. And this will also really bring out this color, and it will also bring out this golden nymph skin from underneath. I don't know if you can see it, but it gives this really nice shimmer to the thorax cover. And this I've only found out today as I got the materials, and I'm really pleased how it turned out. So there we have the Chroma Caddis Pupa, here in this golden brown variant. So thanks for liking and commenting. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time, and happy time!